My name is Son Yeol. I am a president of the East Asia Institute and a Yonsei University professor. I am honored and pleased to be able to participate in this workshop. I think it's been 3 years because of the COVID. We haven't really had a regional workshop, face-to-face workshop, but this time it just happened that I'm very happy to see you all in person. I am moderating this session. Session is a working lunch session, although we all had already had a lunch. So working session sounds like a less formal, relaxed and more open discussion. And the topic is South Korea's democracy support, electoral integrity and good governance aid. So we will discuss South Korea's democracy at present, and also expectations of the South Korean democracy, and also democracy cooperation from the outside, external. So with that issue, we have a great panel. Distinguished, I think three of the panelists are all actually practitioners from international organizations, NGOs, and the government. Let me quickly introduce, very shortly introduce our three panelists. On my left, Mr. Seung-yeol Kim, who is advisor to General Secretary of the Association of World Electoral Bodies, which is located in Songdo. It's very close to this place. And on my right, Ms. Hyunhee Hwang, who is Director of Human Rights Division of the Ministry, ROK Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And my far right, Mr. Chan-ho Kim, International Manager of the Korea Democracy Foundation. I expect that three presenters introduce their own organizations, activities, visions, roles, etc., and also their evaluation of South Korea's democracy. And we have a great discussant in Kim Jung, a professor of the University of North Korean Studies, and who is a long-term EAI scholars. So with that, I think that we start a bit late, but I'll do my best to finish up by 3 o'clock on time. And so we already spent 30 minutes lunch, 35 minutes lunch. So presentation, I think each presenter spend about 15 minutes. And then Professor Kim, you will discuss about 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. And then we open the floor and take questions. Okay, then let's start with Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Professor Son. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Seung Kim. I'm working for the Secretariat of AWEB, the Association of World Election Bodies. First of all, I'd like to thank Asia Democracy Research Network for having me in this workshop. And I'm very glad that I have this great opportunity to introduce AWEB and do a presentation of what AWEB does and how South Korea contributes to world democracy through AWEB. So for those of you who don't know AWeb, to help you understand a little bit of what AWeb is, I'll be very, very briefly talking about AWeb, structure of AWeb, and secretariat, and main activities of the secretariat first. Then I'm going to discuss the meaning and the role of AWeb in world democracy. So these are the vision and the mission of AWeb. You see some keywords like efficiency, effectiveness, free, fair, transparent, participative elections. And you also see some keywords from mission, like exchange of experiences and expertise, and strengthening electoral democracy and around the world. As you see, AWeb was first established in 2013. And by the way, the number of the election management bodies who joined AWeb in 2013 was 94. And this number has increased up to 119 as of now. And as you see, the secretariat of AWeb I'm now working for was established in April 2014. And it is located, as Professor Son mentioned, in Incheon City. So there are two major AWeb meetings. One is executive board meeting and the other one is General Assembly meeting. So the executive board meeting takes place every year and the General Assembly meeting is held every other year. So October this year, 2022, the fifth General Assembly meeting will be taking place in South Africa. So currently the chair of AWeb is the Election Commission of India. And the Electoral Commission of South Africa will take over the chairmanship of AWeb during the fifth General Assembly meeting in South Africa. Now moving on to the AWeb Secretariat and its activities. So the Secretariat is a permanent institution. And as I said, it's located in South Africa. And it's the Secretariat through which the South Korean government supports AWeb. So the Secretariat organizes a variety of programs to realize AWeb's vision and mission. And the Korean government is rendering financial support. And the revenue sources of AWeb are also membership fees and donations as well. So like I said, the Secretariat organizes many programs in collaboration with its member election management bodies, partner organizations, and regional centers. For example, the AWeb Secretariat organizes many seminars and international conferences, as well as consultation meetings. During the pandemic, we have recently organized many webinars to identify the challenges that many election management bodies have in common due to the pandemic, and we try to find the solutions. So those are some of the themes addressed during the webinars over the last few years. And one of the most important programs the AWeb Secretariat carries out is Election Visitor Program. So actually, there are several international organizations and NGOs who organize election observation mission like AWeb. But there are a few distinguishing features of AWeb's Election Visitor Program. The first feature is its principle of full respect for the sovereignty of the host country, which applies to all other activities of the AWeb Secretariat. The primary objective of AWeb's election visitor program is to facilitate sharing of knowledge and exchange of expertise among member EMBs, so they can learn from each other and further develop their election management capacity. So AWeb's election visitor program never interferes with the host country's sovereign rights. And the second distinguishing feature of AWeb's election visitor program is that the composition of the mission encompasses a whole range of regions. So we encourage and welcome the participation of all members of AWeb in observation missions. So like I said earlier, AWeb currently comprises 119 EMBs from 109 countries around the world. So in this sense, AWeb's election visitor program can serve as a great opportunity for election officials from all parts of the world and a whole spectrum of electoral environment to share their expertise in election management. And another distinguishing feature is that AEF's election visitor program also functions as an occasion for all members of the AEF community together and encouraging the host EMP to successfully complete their mandate throughout the election. In other words, AEF's election visitor program promotes supportive relations within the AEF community. They are not there trying to find the errors or mistakes in election management during elections. So of course they give feedback and observation report with suggestions in it. But basically, they join the AEF observation mission to support the host DMV, not to criticize them. So those are some examples of the election program the AEF Secretariat has carried out so far. And election management capacity building program is another important program that the AEF Secretariat has carried out for many years. This program is run as part of the official development assistance of the Korean government. So those are the themes of the election management capacity building programs in 2021. So the themes are chosen every year based on the results of the survey, demand survey among member election management bodies. And this is the basic structure of the AEF. So the General Assembly is the highest decision-making body comprised of all members of AEF. The Executive Board is the governing body. The Executive Board consists of 20 members representing 5 continents. And as you see, there's a secretary. Okay, then what's the meaning and the role of AEF in world democracy? To begin with, we can first talk about South Korea's initiative in founding AEF. In 2011, National Election Commission of South Korea held Seoul International Forum on Election. And during the forum, it proposed founding AEF for the first time. And after the Seoul Forum, they organized a working group committee comprised of regional associations of election management bodies and international organizations, including UNDP. And they organized a series of working group meetings and drafted a charter of AEF, stipulating vision, mission, membership, structure, and sources of income, and so on. So this draft charter was adopted at the inaugural General Assembly meeting in 2013, and this is how and when AEF was officially established. Globalization. Well, before AEF, regional associations were already there. And the National Election Commission of Korea came up with this idea that in the past, 2 keywords, free, fair, were enough to describe a good election. But in the new era, more adjectives such as inclusive, participatory, and transparent are required to explain what constitutes a well-run election. The problem is newly established election management bodies have neither the capacity nor the resources to meet those adjectives. So for this reason, National Election Commission of Korea stressed the necessity to found a global level of entity beyond local and regional level associations in order to systematically support new democracies to achieve good governance through free, fair, inclusive, participatory, and transparent elections, as stated in the Charter of AEF. And I think the ultimate goal of AEF as a global level international organization is to address and emphasize the importance of electoral democracy and the universal values of election. Based on this goal, the Secretariat is trying its best to facilitate cooperation and coordination among members. In order to deepen the cooperation among members, we constantly identify and set the agenda that may have a great effect on our members. In other words, we identify common challenges and the issues shared by our members and facilitate exchange of information and experience by various means. So the various means could be international conferences, bilateral or multilateral consultations, election visitor program, capacity building program, joint research, and so on. So for example, immediately after the outbreak of COVID-19, many member EMBs of AWEB found themselves in trouble. So in order to identify the common challenges and seek solutions, the AEF Secretariat decided to organize a series of webinars covering and targeting all 5 continents. So those EMBs that were scheduled to hold elections expressed their concerns and challenges. And those EMBs who had already held elections in the midst of COVID-19 shared their success stories and their failures as well. So this was a very, very brief introduction of AWEB and some meanings of it. And in the interest of time, I will wrap up my presentation here. And for more information of AWEB, you can contact us anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seung-yeol Kim for the presentation that included AWEB's conferences, research, and also election visitor programs. Some of the key programs this organization is running: capacity building program, and he also discussed South Korea's role in AWEB. So I'm sure that you will have many questions to ask about this organization. Let's turn to our second presenter, Director Hyun-hee Hwang. She will discuss South Korea's role from the government perspective.
Good afternoon. My name is Hyun-hee Hwang. As he kindly introduced, my name is I'm Director of Human Rights and Social Affairs Division, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. I feel very honored and privileged to give a presentation at this meaningful workshop. Today, I will give an overview of the Korean government's approach to global democracy. As Korea's new administration has recently been launched, a lot of focus will be placed on the direction it is heading in. Before going into details, let me start with the status of global democracy. You see an excerpt from the Freedom in the World 2022 report by the Freedom House. It concludes democracy has been in constant decline for the past 16 years. Also, according to the report, only 20% of the world's population is living in free countries. You may agree or disagree with this conclusion, but anyway, such a picture is giving a rise to a sense of urgency that action must be taken to thwart the trend. Against this background, Korea's new administration aims to make stronger contributions to advancing freedom, peace, and prosperity around the world. President Yoon Suk-yeol, in his inauguration speech on May 10th this year, asserted that it is our generation's calling to build a nation that espouses liberal democracy and ensures a thriving market economy, a nation that fulfills its responsibility as a trusted member of the international community, and a nation that truly belongs to the people. More recently, in his speech on the occasion of the 77th Liberation Day, President Yoon emphasized that the mandate of the times calls for countries that share universal values to stand in solidarity, to defend freedom and human rights, and achieve peace and prosperity for the citizens of the world. To summarize, the Republic of Korea now envisions a greater role in promoting global democracy. My government's current stance did not emerge overnight. It is solidly based upon our experience of democratization. Korea is one of the few countries to have achieved democratization and economic development in the span of a generation. Despite being subject to colonial rule, a devastating war, and a series of authoritarian regimes. And throughout all of this, basically, it was the Korean people that relentlessly pushed democracy forward with some help of the international community. And we think there is value in sharing with the partner countries our experiences, both the intense struggles as well as the achievements. And so we are trying to do this both bilaterally and multilaterally. On the multilateral front, Korea has been actively partaking in democracy-related initiatives, such as the Community of Democracies and the Bali Democracy Forum. In December last year, we participated in the first Summit for Democracy that was hosted by the United States. At the summit, we made some commitments, such as sharing anti-corruption policies, sharing e-government system with the developing countries, and expanding official development assistance for women's capacity building in developing countries. Korea is now a member of the Summit Focal Group and is working closely with like-minded countries in preparation for the second summit, which is scheduled to be held next year. Bilaterally, we have been providing democracy-related development assistance for our partner countries. On the screen is all too famous, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which is serving as a guideline for our official development assistance. In particular, the goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, is perhaps closely related to today's topic. Under the goal 16, our bilateral assistance has been focused on strengthening good governance by building the capacity of public administrations, fair judicial systems, and e-governments. This is to strengthen the capacity and transparency of governments and reduce corruption. In fact, from our own experiences, we view corruption as one of the biggest threats to democracy. Therefore, we are sharing our anti-corruption policies and experiences with partner countries, both bilaterally and through international organizations such as UNDP. One thing that we know is quite effective is our support to build e-government systems. From our experience, digitalization and real-name financial transactions have been key in promoting transparency and tackling corruption. So we are currently helping a number of partner countries in this area. We also consider strong and independent judicial institutions as essential for functioning democracies. And for this reason, Korea has been helping to build fair judicial systems, as well as training and capacity building for judges. For instance, we have been supporting a program to increase transparency in legal procedures and quality of court rulings. We are also working to promote election integrity, one of the key features of democracy, which is more related to today's topic. Having successfully administered fair elections, Korea is willing to share our know-how and experience. We provide training programs in Korea for election officers from partner countries as shown on the screen. And when you have elections, we invite them to Korea to observe how we prepare and conduct elections. We also provide advice on how to establish and implement effective election regulations. So I briefly covered the Korean government's willingness and efforts to promote democracy around the world. Now, under our vision of the global pivotal state, and with the arrival of new initiatives to revive democracy, such as the Summit for Democracy, we are expecting to do more in the coming months and years. And with that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
External dimensions of democracy promotion efforts by the Korean government. She started by mentioning the new South Korean president who is taking a very proactive stance toward promoting freedom and democracy both at home and abroad. And with that, she introduced several efforts of the Korean government, including anti-corruption, electoral integrity, etc. Thank you very much. And the last speaker, Mr. Chano Kim, please.
안녕하세요. Good afternoon. My name is Kim Chano. I'm working at the Korea Democracy Foundation. Maybe you've been heard about this institute, but I've been worked in the Gwangju, the May 18 Foundation for quite a long time. So, the KDF is the public institute which is run by the Ministry of the Administration. So this is the government organization, but mainly I have experience in non-profit organizations. The Korea Democratic Foundation have the very limitation. We are working for the commemorative project of the democratization movement, democracy movement in Korea, but we also have the very limitation situation. That is we are the GO, but we are the public organization, but our characteristic is similar to the NGO. So we have many. We are working with the Korean civil society group. 네, 감사합니다. 네. I'm going to today. I have to explain about electoral integrity, but from the 2018 and until 2019, the KDF have cooperated with the East Asia Institute to support the electoral system in Asia countries. But after that, we don't have many experience to support to the other countries. But also, we have some example to have some good governance aid with the other countries and inside also civil community. So I'm going to introduce about that mainly. Korea Democracy Foundation, I'm going to briefly introduce our institute. The Korea KDF was established to contribute to the development of democracy by carrying out project to memorize the democratization movement and inherit its spirit in accordance with the Korea Democracy Foundation Act. So, as you know, we have the democratization movement 1987. After democratization movement, we have a big achievement, and the big outcome was the National Human Rights Commission, and as well as the Korea Democracy Foundation. We have a similar organization in the other country, that is Taiwan Democracy Foundation in Taiwan. But other developed country and also such a Asia country don't have the similar one. But I heard Indonesia, they were trying to establish some similar organization in there, but I don't have much more information about that. So we carry out support project and arranges events to develop democracy movement, such as the establishment and operation of the Korea Democracy Memorial Hall. It also collects, digitizes, manages, and research documents for the historical organization of the democratization movement, as well as the democratization movement artifacts, preservation, management, and publication. And also recently, project has been undertaken to convert the former anti-communist office of the National Police Agency in Namyeongdong, Seoul, the notorious symbol of state violence during the military dictatorship, into the Democracy and Human Rights Memorial Hall. I think you have also a very similar case in your country as well, because as past 30 or 40 years, you have some period of the dictatorship. So maybe some spot or place used to have this kind of human rights violation. So we are trying to change the building as the place to provide the education program to the young generation to memory to how we support to achieve our democracy and human rights. So we are looking forward to open this building in 2023, but also we have a little difficult with some unexpected problem, but so we will expect to open the building in 2023 anyway. So this is the brief introduction. So if you need more information, then you may ask me later then. So I'm going to explain you our international cooperation program. The Korea Democracy Foundation also has a big accountability to spread out to our experience to in other countries. But we also have some problem because the international cooperation job is very minor in our institute. So we don't have enough budget. So now I entered to the KDF in 2019. So I try to expand our job, not in the Asia, but inside our institute now. So I'm going to explain you the three major programs in our foundation. The first one is the Seoul Democracy Forum. The Seoul Democracy Forum is an international forum of the KDF held biennially since 2009, with the main objective to discuss major agenda related to democracy in South Korea and international civil society to seek the alternative and cooperation. But it becomes an annual event from 2021. This is my achievement. I changed this event to make annual event, not the biennale. So we had already this forum in last June, but the more difficult thing is we couldn't invite many people from outside, but also we used the online. So we organized the participants inside the domestic participants, but also we put our panelists from outside because of the budget, also pandemic. And the next one is I'm sorry to say that we never asked to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to bring some ambassador or something special words, but this is some kind of fashion in these days. So we pointed out international grid ambassador appointed to democracy. KDF has appointed international grid ambassador for democracy to carry out activities to promote democracy and peace at a time when the international exchange is difficult due to the pandemic since 2021. You know, this meeting also have been to 3 years, but we are working for the international solidarity, but it is very difficult to go somewhere else. But also they have their own conference in there, so we need a representative in each countries. So Asia, 20 countries in Asia, United States and Europe started their activity to promote democracy and democratization movement of Korea. So we don't have many achievements of this program, but also we have 20 people in 20 countries. So it's been only 2 years. We're looking forward to make some more program with these people in these countries. This is the last one. This is the main example I prepared to explain you. Council for Peace and Public Diplomacy. This is also we use the diplomacy of things. The Council for Peace and Public Diplomacy is an aggregation joined by 26 civil society groups, organizations associated with the college and human rights group across the 7 Asian countries, including Republic of Korea. These have been leading the Peace and Public Diplomacy Corps. This is the Young Generation Program, or Youth Global Exchange Program for Democracy and Peace since 2020. Now 72 members are actively engaged in 2022. We are the secretarial role of this association, and also this program sponsored by Ministry of Unification, because we use the peace. These people, they joined the international conference, which is talking about the democracy and peace, and also sometimes human rights. And also we are providing the peace education to them. And also they have their own team activity to find out what they have to do for democracy and peace. So we are trying to provide the activity. So page 11. So our overview, year 2021, we only domestic organization 9, and November was 38. But now we have the 25 organizations with Korea, Japan, Cambodia, Indonesia, Nepal, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, 71 members. But this number include the 42 members from the Asia countries. So I'm going to explain you three things as a conclusion. This program, why we had to launch this one, the first, address the limited stability of the conventional civic programs due to the changes in the society and environment. That means the young generation doesn't really interested in to discuss about democracy and peace. So it's very difficult to find out the people to join our program. But, and also act collectively to achieve common objective. The one organization cannot handle the one program very widely. So we need the cooperation with the other NGO and other institute. So it makes happen. So conduct democracy and public diplomacy activities on online. After that, we also have the pandemic, but we have the very good function that is online. So if we can meet the face-to-face, then maybe we can promote more, our relationship is better, but well, anyway, so this is why we had to launch this kind of such a association. Secondly, how we got achievement, what things we got from this program. The first, presenting a new NGO cooperation model dealing with the democracy and peace. We never expected we can have some cooperation with this kind of program. And secondly, presenting a bridge role between the government and the civil society. This is kind of view of the KDF. I call that the KDF initiative, because we have the public organization. Also, we got sponsored by Ministry of Unification. Also, our main member is the civil community and the organization. They never met during the other program, but they also need a young generation. So that's why we can have some platform to meet together with through this program. And also expanding through the indirect exchange with the civic activities into the new domain of activity. This means Korea NGO, which is working for human rights and democracy and peace, it's very few chance to meet which organization to working for North Korean human rights. But our young generation members, they are very much interested in to join the North Korean human rights activity. So through that, the people, they join their program, so they go through their program. So they deliver to what we are doing or what we are doing, and they also brought some information from their side. So we become so friendly, and maybe we will see, we will try to have some common program for the future. I expect to organize some special program for this autumn. Lastly, prospects of CPD and the PPDC. CPD is the modern organization to move to PPDC, representing the international governance cooperation model, sharing democratic experience and achievement. We don't have many achievements, but also we have the foreign organization, members organization. They also have a local members. So we are now a little exchange knowledge and things, but it's going to be more and more. And secondly, engaging the international youth network activities to promote peace in Asia. And lastly, supporting local and regional activity. So this is the last things I want to show. The top is for example, Ministry of Unification. We are the KDF, and NGOs from the outside and inside Korea, and people, that's the young generation to join the program. So when we launched the PPDC, so different organization they joined this one because they need the young people to join. So I think this is the KDF only can introduce you some good governance example. So this is the poster, and you can maybe find some organization in your countries. And this is the last year, who got the certificate from the in-house Asian countries. This is the inside. This the center. He's the Minister of the Unification, Ministry of Unification. This is the this year SDF, and this is last. 감사합니다. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kim Chan-ho. Nicely presented Korea Democracy Foundation's activities, including Council for Peace and Public Diplomacy. So with that, we have heard 3 presentations, and now let us turn to our designated discussant, Professor Kim. We have about 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. I think it is always interesting in participating in any kind of discussion on the South Korea democracy, because the South Korea's democracies, as the Hwang Hyun-hee said, it's dynamic, and we have experienced huge democratic backsliding, as well as we also experienced the democratic resilience as well. So it's kind of miraculous democracy. At the same time, it has always some perils inherent in its dynamic mechanisms here. So in that sense, say I think the 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, I was invited by the Dr. Nambar at the Ulaanbaatar. At the time, I present what's the problem of South Korea's democracy and weakness of South Korea's democracy. But this November, I was also invited by Dr. Barikul at Bangkok. At that event, I have to present what's the strength of South Korea's democracy. So just 10 years, there was a huge and really sea change in evaluating South Korea's democracy. So in that sense, I was very, very impressed by the presenters. Each of them represent their own organization. One of the civic organization, as well as the government Ministry of Foreign Affairs here. So I think the one of most important question I have to ask for the presenters in a common way is, now South Korea's democracy is highly evaluated, and then many of developing countries now try to import some sort of the best practice of South Korea's democracy. So my first question for the presenters are, in your opinion, what's the most valuable exportable attribute of South Korea? It can be, say, electoral integrity, or its effort to contain anti-corruption, many things. But for the presenters, my first question is, what's the most important and valuable and exportable aspects of South Korea's democracy? Say we have more than 30 years of democratic experience, so we have some defects. But I want to know in the civil organization as well as the government organization, what's the real strengths of the South Korean democracy? That's my first question. Second question is related to, say, now South Korea has to be some sort of the cutting edge in terms of democracy promotion. But since the successful democratization in 1987, basically South Koreans, politicians, as well as the civil organization or even people tend to underemphasize, say, the democracy cooperation, democracy promotion, or democracy assistance at the global level. So my second question is related to more practical one here. So from your perspective, presenters, how we can increase the awareness of importance of democracy promotion and how we can contribute global democracy, given that some presenters have emphasized that we are in the middle of so-called global democratic backsliding. So we want to say diffuse the best practice and the resilience of South Korea's democracy. So my second question is how we can increase the awareness of, say, importance of democracy promotion at the global level. So how we can interact with the domestic audience in South Korea, given that we need to be bigger part of the global democracy promotion here. So that's basically my second question. So anyway, I have very, very interesting presentation here, and in that sense, for the next November conference at Bangkok, I will cite and I will introduce some of very interesting idea I have in this conference for the Bangkok's the international conference. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Kim is raising two questions to the presenters. So because of that, I will have to give a chance to our three presenters to respond to those questions quickly. And then I will host questions or comments from the floor. So who, wait a minute. So maybe we go reverse order. Mr. Channel Kim. So the question is there are two questions. You can answer both questions or you can answer either. One is, what is South Korea's most valuable assets in terms of democracy? And two is, how can we domestically increase awareness to democracy promotion and democracy supports to the foreign countries?
Okay, this is absolutely my personal opinion. Because I'm not an academic researcher. So I can just give you my answer. And Korea democracy, how we developed our democracy and what is the main characteristic of our democracy, that is we compared to other cases in other countries, then we are trying to, we have example like in 1960 and 1980, we have the Gwangju uprising, and we have June uprising in 1987, and recently we have the candlelight protesting in 2006, very dynamic. We have but people stay never satisfied to our system, and also there is always appear the civil movement. So this civil movement goes to the civil community. So this civil community also they systemize themselves. So they become a partner to lead this country with the government and assembly. So I know the other countries also have the similar cases, but Korea also we are very much important. We believe the important part is the civil movement one and civil. How can I say? Civil part section. So we have many NGOs, very diverse, different issues. But also this one, some people they become a politician from the civil NGO, but also mainly people they believe this is very important things. And second question is I'm sorry to say that the people in here, from my experience, how we can explain or how we can try to share our experience in other countries, then needs some contribution as well. We need support in ourselves too, but they don't really believe the accountability what we have to do for other countries, because when we have some difficult season, we have a lot of support from other countries, such as developed country in other Europe and other countries. But this is time too, we have to support in other countries because we have many things, but they already just, trying to show in Korea, we are the developed country in East Asia. So that's it. So we are trying, me and other staff who is working for international cooperation, we always ask to, inside the institute, we need more for some contribution to help to other country and so on. So this is I don't think this is the good answer to his question, but also this is the only I can give you as an answer. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Huang?
Thank you. So as to the first question, actually this can be a sensitive issue. And it's also my personal opinion, but when I think of exporting democracy, exporting democracy can be should be handled very carefully. So for example, how can we really, the Korea has experience of ending military regime, but can we really export such a model to authoritarian regimes? No, there will be lots of resistance. So from the perspective of the Korean government, we are more capacity building program for election officials, for example, and they have been well received, and we are, and we think that's the highlight of our democracy program so far. But then we will also explore what can we do more, and also this is also my personal opinion, but when I think Korea's now rising soft power can also be an indirect way of promoting democracy. For example, Korea's like entertainment programs such as TV shows, they just incorporate democratic values just naturally and indirectly as integral parts of the shows. So I think it can also appeal to people around the world, and also can be an indirect, and also even sometimes unintentional way to promote democracy. And to the second question of how to raise the domestic awareness of the importance of democracy. Also, when it comes to the Korean government, we see the US-led Summit for Democracy can be a very good opportunity, because yeah, it is garnering some attention and to this issue of reviving democracy and home and abroad. So we will take chances and to use it to promote also the domestic awareness of democracy. And actually, in principle, when government says something is important, it often loses its appeal, you know, because it becomes boring. So I think personally, we also should rely on the more voluntary activities of the civil society, and also the entertainment part too. When I think of my own experience, I actually spent my childhood under the military regime. But then, like when I was 10 or 11, it suddenly switched to democracy. You know, I didn't even know what the meaning was. And there were always protests on the streets, and there was like tear gas. I always went back home crying because of the tear gas. I didn't know the meaning at the time, but then I naturally kind of grabbed the what is it like living in democracy, and also kind of when I was younger, there was a famous TV show entitled Sandglass, and it also touched upon the transition from the military regime to democracy, and it affected me a lot. And I think also these kind of very interesting and not preaching entertainment forms can also be a very good tool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Kim?
Okay, thank you. So whenever we discuss democracy, you know, I always, it always comes up to my mind, what is it like a democracy? So the term democracy is really broad, whether it's like a political term or academic term, what legal term, I don't know. We have no idea what democracy really is. Maybe some people know because they confine the definition of democracy to maybe something, maybe political democracy or whatever democracy. So the only thing I can talk about the first question, maybe I need to confine this to electoral democracy. So in electoral democracy, election is the cornerstone of democracy. So in the field of my job, I also need to talk about like election management. So we need to conduct good elections to achieve good democracy when it comes to the definition of electoral democracy. And how can we export like the strengths of a Korea like electoral democracy to maybe other parts of the world? It's really hard. I've been working in this field quite many years, and I've been observing many elections in many other countries. And there are many different electoral systems and many different election management techniques. And there is a reason why this country has taken this system, or other country maybe they taking maybe, or they're thinking of taking something else. So we can't like generalize which one is the best one for this country or for like another country. It's really, really hard. Then what are the strengths of Korean election or Korean election management system? I don't know, but one thing for sure is that we can hold the National Election Management Body accountable for whatever happens. So this is possible in Korea, but in many other parts of the world, it's not possible. I don't care what kind of techniques or what kind of electoral systems they have adopted, but is it possible that like civil society organizations or voters, they find something wrong in election management, then can they hold someone responsible for this? Is it possible? I don't know how we can achieve this, but of course it's hard to meet people's expectations, even in Korea. You know, whenever there's an election, like people raise like some questions or doubts about the credibility of the elections. But one thing for sure is that the Korean citizens, Korean voters can hold the National Election Management Body accountable for whatever happens. This is possible. This is happening in Korea. So I don't know what kind of election management technique systems we can export to other countries. We have no idea because like countries, like environment, electoral environment, political environment, or economic environment vary from country to country. So in this sense, I have no idea. But I think the best strength of Korean electoral system or election management system is that we can hold someone responsible for whatever happened during the elections. So, and maybe for the second question, I mentioned the vagueness of the definition of democracy. And this is also true in terms of like generations. Young generations, they define democracy maybe this way, and maybe old generations, because this is the way they first encounter democracy. So different. So young generations have different definitions, different democratic values. So I have no idea. So now election management bodies, one of the biggest concerns is that young people's voter turnout is very low. This is like a kind of a global phenomenon. They are not interested in politics. They are not interested in elections. So they try to, I can say, increase their like a voter education and strengthen their voter education. But like I said, different generations accept like those educations differently. So in the sense, I don't know, how can we increase awareness, public awareness of the importance of democracy? But at the same time, we also need to define the democracy and how we are going to apply it to different generations. So this is all I can answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We opened the floor. We have about 10 minutes. So if you have a question or comments, raise your hand or raise your name tag. Okay. We'll need more than 10 minutes instantly. Okay, so I see Gambit first. I think this order. And then, okay, Sri Nutrani, and then Professor Lee, and Niranjan. Oh, okay. I don't see you, Mr. Magno. Okay. So 5 comments or questions.
Thank you very much for the
And then finally, lady or
Director. For the informations. And my name is Kambat. I am from Mongolia, and actually, the Korean democracy development is very known internationally. And as an example, the activity what East Asia Institute doing for the supporting of Asian Democracy Research Network is also known, and we appreciate the support. And my question, just maybe to Mr. Kim and maybe Ms. Huang. I saw in your presentation that you observed the election in Kyrgyzstan. So my question is, what kind of project or activity program does Korea have on the Central Asian countries in Asia, for instance, Kyrgyzstan, for promoting democracy in that region? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Rina Rianti. I'm from Indonesia, and I used to be election commissioner of Indonesia. I came here for the Gwangju B election in 2010. And I think I need to congratulate AWEB for hosting and supporting the election under pandemic condition. And I think it will be good if AWEB or election commissions in South Korea could develop kind of a comprehensive study on conducting election under pandemic situation. Because in my country, we also looking at the experience that has been done by election commissions of South Korea during the time when we have to host election in 2019. And I think this is also important to develop kind of a study, comprehensive study on using e-voting or kind of electronic device for supporting election. Thank you.
We began to talk a lot about democratic resilience, but the concept is not well clarified. So recently I began to study the democratic resilience. And I found the very good articles in a special edition called the journal Democratization. I strongly recommend you to read this special edition of Democratization this year. And as we all know, democratic resilience is something when there is a challenge, there must be counter mobilization to stop the autocratization, right? So therefore, again, the Buidem scholars have developed two-stage theory of democratic resilience. And many societies, you have an initial erosion, and then some societies succeed to stop the erosion, but some societies fail to stop. And those scholars began to, they analyze episodes, and they find out very interesting observations from their empirical study. The first important thing is judicial independence. If there is a judicial independence, the initial erosion or the second stage of stopping autocratizations, usually it didn't happen. So that's very important. And also there are many useful variables. For example, economic development level is important at the first stage, preventing the democratic erosion, but it's not successful at the second stage. So therefore, even the economically developed countries, there are autocratization phenomenon occurs. And interestingly, if you have a good neighbors practicing democracy, that's very useful for mobilizing the counter mobilization against autocratic erosion. And so there are many variables. And from the study, comparative study, I reflected the Korean case. I think for Korea, this accumulated the success stories are very important to stop autocratization. For example, in Korea, we have student revolution, and also during the authoritarian period, we had the labor movement and all these dissidents and Gwangju incident, all these accumulated stories of democratization give up their own democracy. So to me, that's a very important source of South Korea's democratic resilience force. And of course, that is related to very strong citizen participation in South Korea for the persistence of democracy. And for the narrative, how we can mobilize domestic opinions for the democracy support abroad, I think we can do that. We had a very poor ODA recipient country, now we are donor, with the mantra of it's time for South Korea to pay back for the international contribution. So we can develop a similar rhetoric and imagery of why South Korea, successful democracy, has to contribute to stop the global democratic erosion. I think, for example, for the Myanmar case, South Korean government and civil society quickly mobilized to support the civil society in Myanmar. And also our government introduced very quickly the sanctions against the junta in Myanmar. So we can identify our experience. I think that was possible because of Gwangju memories. So I think if we kind of develop more general rhetoric and principles, we can get the popular support for South Korea's democratic support abroad. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you. And Mr. Magano?
I'm Francisco from the Philippines. So I like the concept of the new generation having its own interpretation, its own narrative. I think Korea provides a powerful narrative of democracy and economic growth, because in our country there is all these issues of historical revisionism, that authoritarianism is good, and in fact that helped in the last elections. Korea is seen by many countries as a success in terms of its investment in creative industry. So I like the notion of putting democratic values and entertainment and creative industries, because Filipinos right now are into K-pop and BTS Army. Although BTS, I think, is having a rest period, but civic education right now in the Philippines, they're exploring different avenues, including the use of performance types of platforms. So I think if Korea, I was having a conversation with Mardi, Korea will produce more movies or a series, K-drama on democracy. A lot of our young citizens, very instrumental in the recent elections. Large voting population among the youth. We are still a young population, unlike the aging population in some of other part of Asia that is highly industrialized. But young population, a lot of young citizens, but they're looking for content. And I like the idea that you have millennials, and the term used now is the Z generation. So I think what Korea provides is a kind of model on the creative industry, as well as the use of digital technology. So of course, a while ago we were listening to India's presentation. So in terms of the democracy assistance, I think it will be in these areas, in the put in a little entertainment, because in the Philippines, that's how elections are done. You have a lot of festivities, a lot of entertainment. I was even joking around that if we can recruit the BTS Army into our effort to revive democracy, because we have been going through the process of authoritarian populism over the last few years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I think it's quite educative for many of us who, for me at least, I've been tracking and democracy promotion for many countries, especially the West, but we don't know really much about the Asia. I think this is a Korean example, and the insight you shared is very valuable. In fact, I always cite as an example of Korea to many, friends and colleagues in India and South Asia. I mean, in such a fastest, time that the country got into democracy and matured, that you will find probably very rare example, in just 30, 40 years, a country actually became so matured. If you look at the last few years events in Korea, how democracy has really become resilient and strongly rooted now. Having said that, I wanted to, in fact, know what Sri also asked about the COVID experience, of conducting elections. In fact, everybody was actually looking anxiously how Korea will conduct election during the peak of COVID, and you did actually very successfully. So I think sharing that experience would be very useful, because a lot of countries, even now also, are not clear how to conduct election during such situation where you have social distancing norms and infection and all that. That's one. Second issue, I think what thing that you said, Ms. Wang, about Korea's own external democracy promotion, and the way Korea is putting up resources and technical and other sort of activities to help other democracies to learn and matured. I wanted to know whether the Korea government has any official policy on democracy promotion. Whether you have many of programs and activities you run, including financial assistance and technical assistance, whether they have been institutionalized. Because in India, we do a lot through election commission and other things in almost 30-40 countries in Asia and Africa, including technical assistance on conducting elections, managing the integrity of the electoral process, and a lot of also other assistance, including we provided in Myanmar, even in Afghanistan, including construction of that entire parliamentary building and many other things. But problem is that we don't have an official position. Other thing, it's done by agencies in an informal way. So whether you have an official kind of mission like what US and Europe do. Second is, what are your institutional apparatus? Do you have institutional systems that actually provide this sort of assistance? And if so, what have been their experience so far?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Thuy Nrudi from Thailand, and I would like to thank AWEB for forming this organization, and really appreciate what you have done so far and what you plan to do in the future. And I have some observations. If you can add some more activities related to the strengthening good governance in election, especially to anti-vote buying, and also strengthening learning process or facility for the people with disability in the process of election. Because for Thailand, for example, or the people with autism group can vote, but it's very difficult for them to vote. Do you have any tools or mechanism for them that you found from various countries, so that we can learn from you? And also for the member of AWEB, the member can be individual or organization, government organization, or must be election commission office, for example. Thank you.
Okay, we are already over time. So I think that we'll have to finish up in 3 minutes. So I don't want to divide 3 minutes into 3. If you, Mr. Kim, do you want to? You're okay. So you take questions, and do you think if you need? Okay, 2 minutes, 1 minute.
Okay, first of all, membership of AWEB. Only national election management bodies can be a member of AWEB, but election related to international organization, they can be a partner organization to AWEB. And when it comes to issue of voters with disabilities and maybe e-voting, and those are the common issues, and AUF and the other election related international organizations, they are discussing this many times, and every year and every month. So and when it comes to the election management during the COVID-19 and what they experience, AF has already compiled many countries' experience into a book. So probably this is maybe accessible through our website. And when it comes to Kyrgyz Republic, at the time, the president of the Kyrgyz Republic personally asked the counterpart of the Korean president for assistance. At the time, people in the Kyrgyz Republic, they didn't believe manual counting or something like that. So that's why the South Korean government, they through AWEB and through, we call it a KOICA, provided computerized voting and counting result transmission system. But this is not the solution to Asia or Asia election management body facing. So we can generalize it, but this is was the like assistance the South Korea government provided for Kyrgyz Republic. Thank you.
You and Dr. Pong.
So I'll give a brief answer to the questions from Mr. Damba and Mr. Sahu in combination. So the Korean government currently does not have programs under the head of democracy per se. But we, as I showed in my presentation, we have anti-corruption, e-government, and capacity building programs with regard to election administration, and also some other programs like peace building and gender equality programs that can also help facilitate democracy in some partner countries. And also, of course, we work with many Asian countries. I don't have a full list of the countries, but yeah, I don't think Mongolia is being excluded from the partner countries. I think it is very much likely Mongolia is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me close. I like to thank three presenters and discussants for participating in your busy schedule during the daytime. And I don't want to summarize because I mean these topics will continue to discuss throughout the workshop. So let me stop here and thank you very much for your active participation.